Welcome to Olmstead Day. And as we wait for everyone to connect, I just want to say thank you to everyone for joining us today to celebrate the Olmstead decision and the Olmstead Plan here in Minnesota. More than anything, today we are celebrating disability. And I honestly just can't think of a better way to go into the weekend with what is anticipated to be our most busiest weekend yet, I believe, here in Minnesota this year. For everyone out there, my name is Curtis Shanklin, and I will be your host for today. I am with the Minnesota Department of Corrections, where I previously held the title as Deputy Commissioner for the Reintegration and Restorative Services Division. I am also co-chair of the Olmstead Leadership Forum, and as a visual description of myself, I am a Black male. I have short Black hair. Today, I am wearing an orange polo shirt, and I have a Black background. I myself do not use any pronouns. So again, welcome to everyone joining us today for the second annual Olmstead Celebration with the Olmstead Implementation Office. So while we are here, we celebrate Olmstead Day to honor the June 22nd, 1999 Supreme Court decision in Olmstead versus LC. This decision declared that segregating people with disabilities violated the Americans with Disabilities Act. In other words, all Americans with disabilities have the right to live their life in the most integrated setting possible and with non-disabled peers. This lawsuit was brought forth by two fearless self-advocates, Lois Curtis and Elaine Wilson. Today, we celebrate these two women and all the advocates before and since who have fought for disability rights. Thank you to everyone for joining us today. And as we think about today, a quick look at what to expect from today. Governor Walz will bring his Olmstead Day greetings to us, followed by another fearless leader, Commissioner Ho of the Olmstead Sub-Cabinet. We will then hear from Jessie Bethke Gomez from the Metropolitan Council for Independent Living. This will be followed by a short break before we move on to the panel discussion with our 5 panelists about the independent living means to them. Let's move on to the celebration. So we are excited to announce Governor Walz has officially proclaimed today, June 22nd, 2023, Olmstead Day here in Minnesota. Here to bring you his greetings himself is Governor Tim Walz.
Hello, everyone. Governor Tim Walz here to wish you a happy Olmstead Day. It's been 24 years since the Supreme Court declared people with disabilities must live in the most integrated setting possible. As your governor, I'm committed to building a state where everyone can live with respect, dignity, and equal opportunity. When people with disabilities can live and work in their chosen communities, our state is stronger. That's at the heart of independent living, the heart of the Olmstead Plan, and the heart of One Minnesota. To all of those who've advocated for equal rights, access, and self-determination, thank you. Together, we'll continue to build a state that works for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Walz, for recognizing the contributions of people with disabilities to our great state, as well as the long fight to get here to where we are today, and the remarkable individuals who continue to advocate for disability rights. As I mentioned earlier, we are also joined by another fearless leader. So we are joined by Commissioner Ho today from Minnesota Housing. Commissioner Ho is leading Minnesota Housing so that every Minnesotan, including people with disabilities, can live in the community that they choose in safe housing that they can afford. She is also the chair of the Olmstead Sub-Cabinet. With that being said, welcome, Commissioner Ho.
Thank you, Curtis. And thanks to the whole Olmstead implementation team, all of the state agency staff who participate in the work, and a special warm welcome to Jessie Bethke Gomez. Thank you for being our keynote today. I look forward to hearing your remarks. I need to leave for a board meeting, but hopefully I get to hear you speak before I have to go. Glad to be here. So happy Olmstead Day. On behalf of the Olmstead Sub-Cabinet, I actually remember January 22nd, 1999 when it passed. So it's exciting to be celebrating with you. My name is Jennifer Ho. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Commissioner of Minnesota Housing. As a visual description, I'm a 50-something-year-old, kind of gender non-conforming, multiracial woman coming to you today with short gray spiky hair, glasses, and a very fancy red leather jacket. sitting in my downtown St. Paul office because I'm in the office today because our board of directors is meeting. In addition to being the commissioner of Minnesota Housing, I've had the opportunity to chair the Olmstead subcabinet since I took this job 4 years and change ago. And the Olmstead subcabinet is an interagency subset of the governor's cabinet that oversees the Olmstead Plan. So we're 13 state agencies that work together in order to make Minnesota a great place to live, regardless of ability. Today, we celebrate independent living and the people who fight day after day and those who fought before us to make it happen. We're also celebrating, I think, a moment in the life of the Olmstead subcabinet where we really are pivoting to really think about our work here in the second term with Governor Walz. The Olmstead Plan is really a roadmap for state government on how we're going to help people, live, work, and play independently. And we'll know we get there when the vision of the plan is realized that all Minnesotans are living the lives they want in the communities of their choice. So currently at the subcabinet, we're really talking about how do we kind of re-energize our Olmstead Plan. We know that more can and must be done to improve the lives of Minnesotans with disabilities. There are elements of the plan that we've had and that we've amended from year to year that will need to continue. But this is really an opportunity to take our work in state government and our work with community to a whole new level. And I don't know if you can tell, I'm a fairly energetic person. I'm a fairly passionate person. And we'd really like to see the next iteration of the Olmstead Plan be infused with our energy, to really be informed by the expertise of people with lived experiences, and to really make sure that we're putting people with disabilities in the center of the plan, as well as its implementation. It's a great time to do it. With historic investments being made in state programs for the next biennium across state government, the next few years hold just enormous promise if we implement these investments with great intention to improve the lives of people with disabilities. But it is going to take great intention for us to do this well. So we need your input and ideas so that this refreshed, re-energized Olmstead Plan can truly reflect the needs and desires of Minnesotans with disabilities. So during the coming months, there will be listening sessions, opportunities to share insights and feedback that will help shape Minnesota's Olmstead Plan going forward. More information will be coming out in the next few months. So just keep tracking the work of the Olmstead Implementation Office, follow their social media, subscribe for the email newsletter. But today is a day to just celebrate the progress that we've made since the Supreme Court did their ruling on Olmstead VLC, and an opportunity for us to look into the future. What's the future that we imagine? So thrilled to be here. Sorry, I need to leave a little early, but glad that I could just help kick us off, following my boss, of course. I'm always happy to go after him. And again, Curtis, thanks for your duties as MC today. And Jesse, thank you for your words. Looking forward to it. Thanks for your work.
And thank you, Commissioner. Outside of just the fancy leather coat and not looking anywhere near a 50-something-year-old, and being, again, a fearless leader who I've learned a lot. I think, as you all have had the opportunity to hear from Commissioner Ho, and just the passion, and not only that, just the compassion too as well, that she brings into her role as the leader of the Olmstead subcabinet group. But more importantly, just leading the work at Minnesota Housing, across the state. So
now I'm blushing, Curtis, so I'm gonna have to go off camera.
So sincere gratitude for you, and have a blessed rest of your week and an amazing weekend. And with that, We are now looking forward to the keynote speaker, who is probably also the best dressed, I would say, on the camera today. So we are pleased to welcome Jessie Bethke Gomez to our celebration today. Jessie is the Chief Executive Director for the Metropolitan Council for Independent Living. He has been with MCIL for over 8 years and has 25 years of experience leading nonprofits focused on advancing the well-being of children, families, people with disabilities, and older adults. He has also served on over 40 boards, commissions, and leadership teams. Jessie is committed to advancing the ability for people to care for each other, and he is here today to share about independent living with human dignity. And again, without further ado, welcome, Jessie.
Thank you so much, Curtis. It's a really honor and joy to be here with you today in honor of Olmstead Day and this wonderful celebration. I'm Jessie Bethke Gomez. I am Latino with dark hair, suit and tie, and I go by he and him, his. So pleasure to be here with you. When I think of Olmstead, I also want to mention that we're in the 40th year of Minnesota Human Rights Day, which was started by, I'm so honored to share with you, my mother, Irene Gomez Bethke, when she was Commissioner of Human Rights working for Governor Rudy Perpich, and she instituted Human Rights Day on December 10th, 1983. So it is certainly a momentous day, and thinking back over the arc of all of these years, it is certainly a day of celebration. I'm mindful of time, and I will keep us on time here. My theme here today is independent living is at the heart of the Olmstead Plan and for society overall. So what is independent living? The National Council on Independent Living has a philosophy, and they emphasize the term consumer control. For us, we believe this definition translates into person-centeredness, the idea that people with disabilities are the best experts on their own needs, have crucial and valuable perspective to contribute, deserving of equal opportunity to decide how to live, work, and take part in their communities, particularly in references to services that powerfully affect their day-to-day lives and access to independence. I lead Metropolitan Center for Independent Living with a wonderful board of directors with the greatest staff in the whole wide world. We are one of 8 centers for independent living in the state of Minnesota. We also have the Minnesota Statewide Independent Living Council, in which the governor appoints the trustees for the council as well. Together, we are part of 405 centers of independent living throughout the United States. And our founder was Ed Roberts, who was a champion for independent living, civil rights, and the Americans with Disabilities Act. The essence of who we are as a Center for Independent Living is a perpetual belief and dedication to independent living philosophy that ensures that regardless of disability, apparent or non-apparent, individuals are treated as the ultimate expert in their needs, interests, and goals, particularly when it comes to services impacting access to independent living. We're going to hear a panel talk more about independent living. And so I want to share with you from our work in kind of the discovery. While I'm not a person with disabilities, my brother and 4 sisters are persons with disabilities. God bless my parents, before they passed, they were people with disabilities. We really grew up with this idea to be all that you can be, which is at the heart and soul of independent living. From this journey, that we recognize that independent living is really based upon 2 fundamental foundational principles of society that elevate this notion of independent living. The first is that we all have certain inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the second is that it is self-evident that all humanity is equally endowed with human dignity. That means for all individuals throughout the world and throughout all time. And so, Commissioner Ho, as you are looking to go forward and engage people on the plan in its next iteration, my hope is that the plan also takes into consideration these fundamental principles of the certain inalienable rights of all humanity, and that we look upon the lexicon of human dignity, of what it means as self-evident for all humanity, and that we're all equally endowed with this throughout the world and throughout all time. Let me pivot to independent living in the Olmstead vision, which is wonderful in how these two expressed and harmonize this idea of championing their rights in the fullness of life with people with disabilities. To make the promise of Olmstead a reality in Minnesota, the subcabinet, which began with Governor Dayton in 2013 and Governor Walz has done a phenomenal job in implementing and valuing the implementation of the Olmstead Plan. The vision is this: people with disabilities are living, learning, working, and enjoying life in the most integrated setting. The Olmstead cabinet that I have known throughout all these years truly embraces the Olmstead decision as a key component of achieving a better Minnesota for all Minnesotans. And throughout the years and the iteration of the plans I have seen has always strived to ensure that Minnesotans with disabilities have the opportunity both now and in the future to live close with their families, to live lives with friends, to live more independently, to engage in productive employment, and to participate in community life. This includes the opportunity and freedom for meaningful choice, self-determination, increased quality of living through opportunities for economic self-sufficiency, employment options, choices of living location, situation, having supports needed to allow people to have these choices. Systematic change supports self-determination through revised policies and practices across the state government and the ongoing identification and development of opportunities beyond those choices available today. And this vision includes that readily available information about rights, options, and risks and benefits of these options and the ability to revisit choices over time. I have worked throughout my career with most of the state departments, and I have worked with every single governor going back to Arnie Carlson. My mom worked for Governor Rudy Perpich, and I can say that there is such a strong commitment to people with disabilities. I'm going to read at the end of this the list of all of the agencies who were involved, but it truly is a celebration in a remarkable way of championing what this vision means. So in this regard, this vision statement has a great alignment with what independent living is all about, namely, the idea that people with disabilities are the best experts on their own needs, having crucial and valuable perspective to contribute, and deserving of equal opportunity to decide how to live, work, and take part in their communities, particularly in reference to services that powerfully affect their day-to-day lives and access to independent living. A little bit of time I have left, which I do, I want to mention that what does the plan include? And each plan section of this plan has an extraordinary amount of vision, goals and objectives, metrics and achievements. Here are the 13 areas that comprise the plan. Person-centered planning, which fits so wonderfully with independent living. Transition services, a shout out to the plan that had helped move over 3,400 people into integrated service settings. I know for MCIL, we've assisted over 700 people with transitional services last year. So we're happy to be a part of that effort as well. Number 3 is housing services. Number 4 is employment. Number 5 is lifelong learning and education. Number 6, timeliness of waiver funding. 7, transportation. 8, healthcare and healthy living. 9, positive supports. 10, crisis services. 11, community engagement. 12, prevention, abuse and neglect, and assistive technology. I was very proud to see with Executive Order 19-13 by Governor Walz, a shout out to you, Commissioner Ho, for leading the subcabinet. And the subcabinet has Department of Corrections, Department of Education, Department of Employment and Economic Development, Department of Health, Department of Human Rights, Department of Public Safety, Department of Human Services, Department of Transportation, Department of Veteran Affairs, the Metropolitan Council, and the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency, the Office of Ombudsperson for Mental Health and Developmental Disabilities, and the Governor's Council on Disabilities. I want to give you a brief example that, from my view, when the Olmstead subcabinet asked for there to be a cross-work team between DEED and DHS to identify recommendations to solve the direct care PCA workforce shortage crisis in 2017, I was asked to be part of this group of so many people that played such a huge role. And we wrote a recommendations report that went back to the Olmstead subcabinet, was approved in March of 2018. I'm also proud to say that Metropolitan Center for Independent Living has contributed towards this plan. We are working on such things as a PCA College Service Corps and working with Women Staying Strong and a phenomenal group, and also with Minnesota State on the development of a certified PCA linked to the newly approved PCA CFSS rate framework. Really, and our work in reaching out nationally, what I see is that because of Olmstead, because of you, that we came forth with recommendations. Yes, we have a long way to go, but we are building what I would call the Minnesota model for the rest of this nation to follow. So in closing, we're deeply grateful to the Olmstead and this Olmstead Celebration Day, because it is lifting all of us to a higher space, the recognition of those certain inalienable rights of human dignity, and that independent living is at the heart of the Olmstead Plan and for society overall, that the idea that people with disabilities are the best experts on their own needs, having crucial and valuable perspective to contribute and deserving of equal opportunity to decide how to live, work, and take part in their communities, particularly in references to services that powerfully affect the day-to-day lives and access to independence. In short, congratulations to Minnesota on Olmstead Celebration Day. Curtis, I'll toss it back to you.
I appreciate that, Jesse. I could have listened to you for as long as you would have liked to have went on, and I mean that sincerely. Just thank you so much for just coming here and being willing to share your expertise with us, but also more importantly, just the things that you highlighted. You talked about our inalienable rights. I wrote down, and you mentioned it again. The best expert on their own needs, and to talk about this in a way that gets us back centered around, the humanity and the dignity of all of this, and also just your willingness to even share, about your own, personal, life and your family. And so, again, with all sincerity and so much gratitude, just thank you so much just for your commitment just to the work. Thank you for your time, sharing and being with us today. And again, I'd be remiss not to say it. You definitely are the best dressed person that I have seen in a while. So again, thank you for being here with us today. Really appreciate it. So welcome back, everyone. We are now moving on to the panel discussion, where we have 5 self-advocates with us today to share with us about what independent living looks like for them. Moderating the panel, we have Jillian Nelson, Community Resource and Policy Advocate with the Autism Society of Minnesota. Awesome. And our panelists for today are Tabiso Rowan, Laura Andert, TJ Middlebrook, Carly Hargith, and Reed Scheller. As I always say, if I have mispronounced any of your names, please make sure you correct when it is your time to speak. And again, really appreciate you all being with us today. With that, I will turn it over to our moderator for today, Jillian. Welcome to the group, and I will turn it over to you now.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jillian Nelson with the Autism Society of Minnesota. Thank you so much for joining us today. Olmstead Day is a day that's very, very close to my heart. A quick visual description: I'm a white woman with my teal hair and a bun, wearing a lavender tank top and a black sweater. I'm sitting in front of a blurred background in my very, very messy office that will just shield from you. I am so excited to be joined by Tabiso and Laura and TJ and Carly and Reed. I think this is going to be a really, really fantastic discussion. So I'm going to go ahead and just ask all of my panelists to go ahead and introduce themselves and share their pronouns. Mine are she, her, and also offer a visual description. And we'll just go down the list and start with Tabiso.
Hi, everybody. So happy to be here and join you guys. Can you hear me okay? Yep. All right. My name is Tabiso Rowan. My pronouns are, I use he, him pronouns, except when I'm doing my meditation practice almost daily. I don't identify with any type of identity in any case. He, him pronouns. I am a caramel colored male man with short black hair and beautiful brown eyes and a clean shaved face. And I'm wearing a green shirt. So thanks for letting me be here today.
Okay, and Laura?
Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Anders. I am so excited to be here today. And usually I get a little bit nervous, like speaking on whatever I have to speak on, but I am so excited. I'm not nervous at all. I'm like nervously excited, but excited. Yeah, all together, I feel great. So excited to be here. I don't use any pronouns. My image description is I am a white female with long, dark brown hair. And I have brown speckled glasses, and I'm sitting at my home office desk in front of a white panel wall with lighting in the back. So thank you.
Thanks, Laura. TJ?
Hello. Okay, just making sure the interpreters are ready to go. My name is TJ Middlebrook, and I am a Black male. I am here in the background. I have some photos on the wall, different pictures, red and black colored. I'm also wearing a black or dark blue shirt, and I've got my headphones in, and I use he, him pronouns. Thank you again.
Thanks so much, TJ. Let's hear from Carly.
My name is Carly Hargith. I use she, her pronouns. I am wearing a light blue shirt and I have short brown hair and glasses, and I am white.
And last but definitely not least, joining us by phone today is Reed Scheller. So it looks like Reed might be having a couple tech issues, so hopefully we'll hear from him shortly. So thank you all so much for joining us today. I think one of the most important things about a discussion such as this one, I'm talking about independent living, is I would really like to start us off with really just kind of a baseline. In the disability community, there's a lot of different definitions for a lot of different ideas. And I just would like to start us off with, like, how do we all define independent living? I know when I was young, I thought of independent living as, okay, I'm gonna live on my own, I'm gonna do everything all by myself. And now independent living means something very different. It means that I manage my own staff and I keep my case manager on her toes. So what are your definitions of independent living? And I'll just let you guys hop in here whenever you're ready.
This is TJ. I'm ready.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess my definition of independent living, it mostly focuses on equal opportunity, making sure that we have equality about where we live and work and being engaged in the community, right? It's not just as a person with disability. You know, I'm a Black person, I'm also a deaf person. So I have many different roles. But independence should be led, should be your own decision. And I think that's what leads to independence successfully. I guess that's my definition of it.
And that's what we're definitely looking for today, is everyone's own definition. Laura, did you have something to add?
Yes, I wanted to add to this, Jillian. I agree with you. When I was young, I thought independent living was defined as, oh, I'm gonna do everything by myself. Yeah, I just had this picture in my head of like me being independent in a room all by myself. But it looks very different. I mean, let me just say, I define it as my ability to do my daily tasks independently. What I have to get done for the day. Any small task can be perceived as a big or small task for many of us living with a disability. And I just make sure all my boxes are checked off for the day to get stuff done on my own. Even if it's a small question, well, for example, if I have like a question in regards to like my insurance, like who can I reach out to? What can I Google? Google using the computer. What can I Google in? Like, how do I call this number or who do I talk to? So just really checking off boxes every day and making sure I can do this stuff independently on my own, being a self-advocate, and promoting that to other people, like this is what I need and this is what I want. So listen to me. So yes.
How about you, Carly?
So my description or whatever of independent living, I would be saying like living on my own and like making my own decisions, but also having that support system close by if I were to need or want anything. But otherwise, you got the transportation to go places freely. And I kind of like, I don't know, I guess younger, it's like I always thought like, independent living would be like going off to college. That's what I considered independent living because that's when you left the house. But college wasn't for me. So I was kind of home longer than my siblings. But I guess I consider like independent living as spreading my wings. That's what I kind of always say.
No, so I'm really curious to hear your definition. Knowing your history, I have a hunch that your views on independent living have changed over the years.
Yes, in my visual description, it's not part of the vision right now because you can't see that I use a wheelchair. So I had a spinal cord injury in 2011, and then I was, put into this kind of community of being a person with a disability and identifying as being a person with a disability. I'd have to agree on what you guys said regarding that, my view of what independence means is always changing. And I need more inclusion and more accessibility to be independent. So sometimes that means that I need people in my life to help me be more independent. Kind of the root of what I see as independence is this, having accessibility, this practice of inclusion, having rights, and then having freedom. So some of these terms are all interlinked in my life. Having rights for me leads to freedom. Having accessibility for me leads to inclusion, right? And there are barriers to all of those things all over the place. And my sense of independence comes down to how do I navigate those obstacles in my life? Right? I have this vision of my highest self. And just a little glimpse of that vision is I'm a person of service, I'm loving, I'm caring, I'm taking care of my health, I'm abundant in my finances and my career, right? That's my higher self. And so how can I get there? That's what independence is to me, is how can I pave this path to being more independent? And sometimes it's very, very much on a physical basis, being a wheelchair user and not being able to go up steps and things like that. But a lot of times, I mentioned a little bit about my meditation practice and my, just having the mental capacity to be confident when I need to. Sometimes that's really hard for me, is to, be the only person in the room in a wheelchair and then will myself to have the confidence to ask for what I need without, feeling like I'm making a big scene or something like that. But like being independent kind of means I don't have to be more confident, but it also means I do have to be more confident. So once again, it's that internal battle of what I view as independence. And once again, that's always changing throughout my life and my experience and circumstances.
It's a fantastic viewpoint. So I want to ask all of you, what are some of the things that have been helpful for you individually in achieving your definition of independent living?
I can go first.
Absolutely.
Yes, I love this question. And if you recall how I answered question number one, I said in my response, I said I persevered and spoke up for what my needs and my wants. And that bounces off to this question. Like, I've always been an advocate from day one, or let's just be real here, not when I was a baby. I couldn't speak up for what I need. I just cried, but or I smiled, or but once I hit adulthood, just like Carly, I knew college wasn't right for me, and I had no idea where I was going. But I taught myself how to speak up for myself and what I wanted. And I grew up in a household that knew, my parents and my two big sisters knew I was capable of reaching my full potential, and they knew I was good at communicating, or I could communicate myself with no help. And so really, today I just advocate for myself, and I keep on doing that, speaking out for myself. And yes, it's hard sometimes, because you want the outside world to know or expect you, or expect, yeah, like what you want, but yeah, you just need to keep on speaking out for your wants and your needs. So I hope that answers the question thoroughly.
Great. I can jump in if that's okay. I just wanted to piggyback off that, Laura, because I really agree. Having that confidence is a big one. I just dropped my son off at a language camp. He's there for 2 weeks and he doesn't know anyone and he doesn't really speak Spanish, but we brought him up there and left him there. So, and I just told him, I kind of reiterated my story. Hey, when I used to roll into a restaurant and just be kind of nervous and almost a little bit of anxiety about, I have to make people move in a lot of cases. And it's just kind of a big deal sometimes, find the seating for where's the wheelchair seating. And then I realized at some point, that having the confidence to roll in there and just ask for what I need. And I know with Jillian and some other folks here, we've had training on self-advocacy, and that's a big part of it. Part of it is sticking up for my rights and speaking up for myself, and just having that mentality that I have the right to be a part of this restaurant, or a part of this community, or part of this concert, or wherever it is that I come up with challenges regarding accessibility and just identity and all these other things. So the confidence has been a big one, but really fueled by that accessibility, or the self-advocacy, and that that strive for rights for myself. And just like the Olmstead decision and everything, these things that are inherent rights, that are God-given rights, if however we want to say it like that. So
Carly or TJ, do either of you have anything to add to this one?
I guess I can go next. So I'm gonna kind of piggyback off of Laura and the BCO. Did I say that right?
to be so, yep, you got it. You got
Okay.
it.
I apologize for that, but I agree with the confidence and all. I considered actually myself as a turtle in my own little shell. Growing up, because I was kind of hanging back in the background and not wanting to speak up by myself. And now you can't get me to stop talking or speaking up for others. So, but like, I agree with Laura with telling like people your wants and your needs, because that's the only way you're going to get to be independent, by stating what you want, like where you want to live, what you want in this, in order to make you also feel safe and secure in the area you're living in. So, I mean, that's always something too, when I was moving out to look for a safe environment, like things I needed that would be close by. But also it's like, yeah, I do have a support system that checks in every, like maybe once or twice a week. So I still have that safety system, but yet living on my own and making my own meals and all that.
TJ speaking here. I want to agree with what everyone has said thus far. I definitely agree. I do also want to emphasize that one of the things that I had to deal with growing up was my family. I was the only one who was deaf. So I really did struggle with communication reminders in the family. Most of the time, you know, people were looking at me, oh, we'll tell you later when I know something was going on. And, you know, going off on a different stride, you know, struggling with that isolation that comes with that, emphasizing independent living looks like this for me. You know, there's policy, state statutes, there's legal laws and action, the Americans with Disabilities Act. I really do rely on those things as a self-advocacy way to receiving access ability in several things. If someone says no, I can really rely on those policies, statutes, procedures to advocate my right, my inherent human right to communication, language access, what have you, because all of that I heavily do rely as I go throughout my daily living. I rely on communication access in order, as well as heavily relying on those policies, laws, and such to continue in my daily life towards independent living, whether it's working, accessibility for job. There's a variety of things that comes into play. You know, speaking up, you know, I do know what I need, making sure they understand the policies that protect that need, whether it's the ADA that's supporting that. Having my own voice to be able to, recently there was a law passed, people still don't completely understand the concept of how to actually work to provide access. That's something we're still working on. So there's a lot of facets to independent living skills that we do rely on policy procedures as well as laws to get that word out there. If we don't continue to raise our voice, people will continue to ignore our needs and the status quo. It'll be the same as growing up for families and children in other ways. We are typically, you feel like you're alone, but oftentimes when we're doing the self-advocacy, it is a really interesting journey. Everyone just needs to continue to use their voice to get their needs out there known, whether it's that safe access, everything in the world really, just in order to have independent living.
What a great thought, TJ. I'm really glad that we talked a little bit more about access. Accessibility is such a big part of independent living. And the hard part is that in our community, it's not really a one size fits all. I mean, there's 6 of us with disabilities sitting here, and I'm guessing we all 6 have very, very different access needs. I went from being an autistic adult with a very invisible disability to now dealing with a lot of chronic pain through chronic illness, and that turning into mobility and just realizing how different and unique access needs are. Which brings us to our next question. That's a great segue to this next question. What are some of the challenges that you've had to overcome to achieve that, and what barriers are still in front of you?
I guess I'll go first if that's okay.
Are you
one
looking
of-
from Carly to TJ?
All right. All right. I guess like one of the challenges I had to do, like when moving out or whatever, was trying to convince my parents, because I am like 1 out of 3 siblings and I'm the only one that has a disability. So they kind of worried about me the most. And I mean, it was stated several times, but they were kind of harder of letting me go than like my brother and sister. So it's like that. So I guess like one thing is like, I was like, well, let's say like, I want this and I want this and I need this. And it's like, so, but also making it comfortable for my parents and showing them like where I'm at and what I need. So it's like, it also made them feel secure, but yet also made me feel, so we kind of came up with a compromise and worked out the best that way. And then I also have like kernel staff, like they come in, but there's also like a barrier with that too, because like there's not enough money for more staff. So therefore shifts had to get cut short and transportation is kind of an issue in my area. So I'm limited to places to go and have to rely on staff for errands a little bit there. So, but trying to overcome that, and yeah, it takes time, but yeah.
Excellent point, Carly. TJ here. A barrier that I've noticed coming up for myself in regards to independence, I've noticed as a child growing up. A challenge typically was, support staff, teachers providing access that was automatic. You didn't realize you had to request it until upon graduation you left. You didn't learn those advocacy skills because everything was already done. So most of the time you go to college, you have no idea how to request these accessibility services. There's a whole laundry list of things. And then I noticed that, that's key. In most communities, you notice as the child being raised, kind of they max out at that glass ceiling. And that's a barrier that I've noticed, as well as, we have people drowning in that way, as soon as, someone gets upset, maybe they're behind me talking to me and I have no idea. As a deaf person, I'm stuck. I can't say like, hey, I can't hear you. I don't even know anything was going on behind my back. You were talking to me. I have no idea. There's a variety of things, one of the barriers that I've noticed in the deaf community is fairly small in Minnesota. It's dwindling. So the social access, everyone is not always there available to communicate. So most of the time, you do find sometimes yourself in isolation, having to rely on lip reading, going out into the hearing world. You're only catching a fairly small percentage, at max 30%. It's hard to lip read and only getting 30% of the message, as well as the hard of hearing individual might have the choice to utilize their voice. If they choose that, they might assume that you can hear well enough, and then you're stuck as an individual. It's like, gosh, I don't know when to speak up. So typically you may turn off your voice to communicate with other people so they can recognize. And once you've developed a relationship of trust with the person, then maybe you're able to turn your voice on and utilize that. Once you've made the decision if you can utilize your voice well or not, knowing and making sure that they know that I don't have perfect hearing. Hard of hearing, it means I can kind of pick up on cues, facial expressions, but I'm not getting a whole understanding 100% of the message. I might be able to hear some of it and pick up specific communication cues based on your body language. There's a variety of things, but that is a huge barrier, is communication for myself.
So I do hear that Reed has also joined us now. Reed, do you want to chime in on some of the barriers you've overcome?
Yes, thank you, Jillian. Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry about that. Some of the barriers I have overcome, that's a tough question for me to answer. Because I've always had such a great support system and family and friends. But I will say, for me, in terms of, it was just finding the right job, just finding the right place to move out to, finding something that was affordable. For me, it was just a lot of those basics. And for my visual description from earlier, I'm a white young man wearing a green polo shirt and brown cargo shorts and sitting in the kitchen in my apartment in Rosemont, Minnesota.
Well, thanks for joining us. Tabiso or Laura, what do you got for us today on this?
Yeah, this is challenges and barriers is a constant struggle. I don't want to say struggle, but it's something that I have to be aware of. When I started taking on this mentality, like, all right, every day is going to be, and every time I go out, it's going to be an adventure, especially in Minnesota with a wheelchair and the snow and, just accessibility. That mine ties back in a lot of times to accessibility, but it affects every aspect of my life, my relationships and my work and how I am in the community. One example of a challenge recently is I live in an apartment and I've been on the 3rd floor for like 3 years, and the elevator goes out has maintenance done every couple months, it seems like. And it got to the point where I had missed, some doctor's appointments and was missing work events and things like that. And so, I needed to find my courage and go to the maintenance or go to the office in my apartment and, let them know, hey, you guys, this elevator thing isn't, this has been a real struggle on me this year. It's been extra bad this year. I need, I'm looking for a new apartment on the first floor. I'd like to get to the first floor. And then they gave me this whole thing about, oh, your lease isn't up until October, and you have to wait till your lease is up before we can switch you to another apartment. And then that's when I almost like I was, I had turned around to roll out of the office, and then I turned myself back around and said, you guys, I can't go until October with, with all of this. And so the next day I got a phone call saying, all right, well, we have an apartment for you. So I've been in my new apartment for like 2 weeks now. And so I don't have to deal with the elevator anymore. But it was just being able to get into my own apartment had its challenges. And so these are, those are things that I'm sure something is around the corner. That's kind of the mentality I have, is that there's always a challenge, which will in the end help me grow. Through this experience, I have more confidence with my, with my apartment management, and they know a little bit more about my needs. Just opening up that door to communication has been a good piece. So yeah, just one example in my life of challenges and barriers that I've come across.
Laura, do you have anything to add?
I do. Yes, I just wanted to add the chime in on the topic of transportation. Transportation has been a huge barrier for me. I do take Metro Mobility in the Twin Cities metro area, and I love it. I'm so grateful for the service. But Metro Mobility at this time doesn't go to like small suburbs outside of the city. So it's just like when I want to go see my friends who live in Hugo or Wyoming, Minnesota, or Forest Lake, I can't get there via Metro Mobility. So I'm constantly thinking of other alternatives that I can take. Yes, I utilize Lyft and Uber. That is an extra cost to me, but I take it. And then I just found out, or I didn't just find out this, but Metro Mobility has a partnership with a shared taxi service, or a taxi transportation plus called taxi service. And you can take that to certain areas at a discounted rate. But the thing is, every per mile, it adds up. So if I go like to Wyoming, Minnesota, and take the taxi out there, it's gonna add up. But so I'm just thinking of ways still, if I want to like go and try something new, and if Metro Mobility doesn't go there, well, how could I get there? And if I take this taxi discounted taxi service, will I have enough cash to pay for it, at the time? Or do I have to go to the bank and take cash out? So I'm constantly thinking ahead of ways to get myself to places I want to go. And for example, tomorrow morning I gotta go pick up some race packets because I'm gonna do a race with my friend on Saturday, or I'm gonna walk in a race. I'm not a runner, but and I just want to go to this place to pick up the packets, and it will take me less than 5 minutes because I know right where it is and I can just zoom in and out. But do I take Metro Mobility there and then wait an hour for them to come pick me up? So again, my mind is constantly, seeing what all I have to do, how I can get the race packets in a short amount of time. So yes, transportation is a barrier. Yep.
One of my biggest barriers, I'm actually surprised I didn't hear from anyone else, is the systems. Like navigating all of the things, like no matter how long my disability is going to last, which is for the rest of my life, I still have to be smarted every couple of years. I'm having to go through the min choice assessment, endless piles of paperwork to access any kind of support needs. And as a person with a disability who is hugely impacts my executive function, that's a really big deal, all of the paperwork and systems. So with all these barriers, there's definitely needs for advocacy. So what are some of the ways when you've had to be an advocate for yourself to reach your independent living goals? Teresa, you had a great example with your apartment office. You're a little ahead of the game there on that one. But I would love to hear some other examples from everyone. Reed, do you want to start us off?
Yes, thank you. One example in terms of me achieving my independent living goals, just whenever necessary, speak up. The biggest time I had to fight for my goals and stuff in my future was my post-high school and transition years when I was in my district transition program, and the program wasn't really geared toward me and was giving me a lot of problems. So that was the time I really had to use my self-advocacy voice, which helped me out a lot because back in my high school years, my case manager was very pro us students advocating for ourselves, not paraprofessionals or teachers advocating for us. So that's where I learned and got comfortable with it over time, as well as partners in policy making class.
Fantastic. Who would like to go next?
I could go ahead. This is TJ.
Oh.
So really, I feel like I have to advocate for myself every day so much because, as I said, most people don't understand how to provide access, to a specific culture, whether it's wheelchair, needing that physical access to doors and stairs and things like that. People don't know how to provide access, right? And so I feel like I'm dealing with it every day. People with hearing loss is one type of disability, but there are so many different types out there. And so that's my answer every day.
How about you, Laura?
Yes, I love this question. I don't want to be redundant here, but just like what we've been talking about, using our self-advocacy every day, speaking up, even we all have bad days. Everyone has bad days. And even if we don't feel like speaking up for ourselves, because people, our loved ones, our peers, sometimes we expect them to know, but sometimes they forget of like what we need or what we want, or just like we expect them to know this, and we're like, we're like, yes, I'm just thinking of example. It's like when we are around our loved ones, we're just like, and we expect them to know like what we're talking about, or like, oh, but I did this and this, and I'm sorry, I'm okay. Let me just step back. Okay, so it's just like we expect our loved ones to know, and our peers to know like what we need, and sometimes they forget about something we have to advocate for ourselves for. And sometimes we're just tired and we don't want to say, well, no, remember, no, I can't do that. I have to do it in this way, but our voices are powerful. And at the end of the day, if we don't speak up, we're going to regret it, because we all know our wants and our needs, so we just got to keep on speaking up and persevering. So.
And then TJ, what do you have to add to that? Oh, TJ, you already went, didn't you?
I mean, sure. I mean, I could, but I did already go, but I do totally agree with what Laura just said. I support that. I mean, it is exhausting sometimes. It feels like, sometimes it's just even where do you start? So I totally support you there, Laura.
Like, I think the disability community talks a lot about things like caregiver fatigue, but we forget that there's also, like, we don't talk about, I don't even think there's a name for it, but there is a certain level of self-advocacy fatigue. A few years back, we had Lydia X.C. Brown come and speak to the Autism Society conference. And one of the most compelling things they said that has really, really stuck with me is that we don't actually know what autism looks like in adults, because like all by itself, because every autistic adult also carries trauma, and like the burden and the stress and the hardship of the constant advocacy and the toll that it plays is something that we really don't talk a lot about in this community, unfortunately. Instead, we get sucked into that, yay, self-advocacy, let's celebrate advocacy skills, without really talking about how great it could be if we didn't have to constantly advocate for ourselves, if the world was just accessible or inclusive or people understood, and that extra burden of advocacy can be really, really exhausting. Tabiso, did you have anything to add?
No, I thought that is a really good point that you brought up, Julian, regarding, the struggle to stay, once again, I was saying I have to have to give myself a talk sometimes almost to be more confident, otherwise it's just not, otherwise it kind of goes against my flow of just being a go with the flow kind of person, confrontation has always been hard for me. But yeah, it's, that's the reality of, all of these lessons and all these things that I've been talking about have come through a real struggle, and there are days when I don't want to deal with, with having to fight for my fight for inclusion, and it's part of the job. But at some point I have to come home from the job and take off my tie and lay down and rest, and find some peace. So I'm really glad that you brought that up, and that's very true. We're humans, we're people, and we have emotions, and we have these struggle. I don't want to use that word lightly when I say struggle, because these are real struggles that we have mental breakdowns and we get put in the hospital and all these other things that we have to deal with, where we are this fighting force, but it's a battle, and sometimes it feels like an uphill battle. So I definitely agree that there's room for change. I know that much.
Great answer. So that brings us to our last question. And as a policy wonk here for the Autism Society, I am constantly looking forward and figuring out what's next for our community and how do we make the world more accessible and equitable. So I want to know, if all of you close your eyes and dream about the future and think about all the younger generations of people with disabilities that are coming after us, what does the future look like for independent living, both for you and for the rest of our community? What dreams do you have? Because I know that the conversation we're having now, I am sure that when Lois Curtis and Elaine Wilson filed their lawsuit so many years ago, that what we're doing and how we're living was beyond their wildest dreams. So what are our wildest dreams? What do we want to see next?
So if it's okay, I'll go. So I know what TJ said, like growing up, we didn't like know anything until like after high school. So I think it'd be kind of cool to have like maybe teaching self-advocacy to the youth now, so they can speak up for what they want in school and then therefore lead to what they want as they grow older or as graduation approaches. So, I mean, I didn't learn about self-advocacy until 2009, and I graduated in 2007. So I was like a turtle, and then it's like I spoke up for myself in 2009, and I'm in my own apartment. I've been in my own apartment for 14 years now. So it's kind of like, if to teach a younger generation this way, like, or like, just sharing my experiences like on this panel or whatever, will also maybe give others in the community like wanting to live independently, because I think some people are afraid to speak up.
I'll go ahead and jump in. Yeah, that's looking to the future. You know, I don't necessarily, of course, know what it looks like, but I do know that there are situations, especially since I started using a wheelchair, you know, when I go to a place and it's fully accessible and it's accommodating to people with wheelchairs, and maybe they have a lower part of the bar or a lower table that I can reach. It makes the feeling that I get when I go to a place that is fully accessible and inclusive is very different than when I go to a place and it's not accessible and it's not inclusive. And sometimes it gets to the point where people are like, almost like look at you like you shouldn't even be at the venue. You know, that's kind of the feel you get. It's just really just the way people's or a lot of pit, you know, or else I get the pity looks, you know, and things like that, which is okay. I understand that people are trying to be compassionate, but that's not necessarily, you know, I'm not a pity case and things like that, you know. So just the feeling when I get when I go to a place and it's inclusive and people are just open-minded to my needs and not babying me, you know, because they think I you know, they have this view of me as a person in a wheelchair, you know, black man in a wheelchair, all the energy, you can feel all of that energy. And so, but I do go to places that are inclusive and people treat me normal. And so that is the feeling that I hope that we can pass on to future generations, where they can feel like, where they don't even have to think about, you know, inclusion and this idea of universal design, you know, where that's just the norm. I can get on the bus, I can, you know, I can get to wherever I need to go and not have all these challenges and barriers, you know, yeah, universal design, not just as a physical place, but as a you know, as a mental place, as a universal design where everything is accommodating to everyone at as best as we can, you know, because everyone's got different needs, so we have to manage that as a community. But yeah, that's my vision of the future is, you know, feeling like everywhere I go is totally comfortable and accommodating to me and that fits my needs, because it's possible. I go places all the time that are accommodating and where people are understanding of working with people with disabilities, and it's amazing. You know, it always makes me feel like, oh, I fit in here, you know.
How about you, Laura?
Yes. And I want to bounce off everyone here. Uh, just like I look to the future and I see everything, everywhere we go is inclusive. And non-disabled folks don't look at you like something's wrong with you and that you have limitations. And because, you know, we're all exposed to that, unfortunately. And we get treated differently, or the opposite, or we get treated babyish. No. I mean, we get treated like babies. Like, no, we're not babies. We just have limitations. Nothing's wrong with us. We just do things in different ways. And the more I want to see in the future, the more people being more educated on people with disabilities and with independent living or out in public or employment, you know, that would all factor in a more inclusive community. I just this week I actually said I have cerebral palsy to like 2 young girls, and I was just like, they may like look at me like I'm different, you know, but they didn't. And I'm just like, wow, like either they know or, you know, they were, their parents taught them, you know, and the, you know, their parents taught them to be nice, treat everyone with respect. So I look into the future and I see peace all around in the disabled community.
Yeah, it's some great insight. TJ?
Yes, the future looks bright because I have two young girls, one who is on the autism spectrum, as well as I just would like to emphasize that we have to look at people as if you don't know what's going on with them. You just have to really be careful regardless. I mean, as you look at others, not just thinking about yourself, but one thing that I've noticed about my children, both of them are hearing, we have to put them with their best foot forward to accessibility. So my daughter is in theater, in community theater. She is totally into it. And one of the things that I love about her is she just knows she needs an interpreter for the performance. She just knows. She'll make sure to the director, what kind of interpreter to get, a certified interpreter. She knows that, someone who knows. It's not just someone who knows sign language. She knows the right things because we educated her on those. Clearly, I can't speak for all parents, but I'm noticing a lot more parents are very transparent with their children, really expanding on concepts of things that they see, if it's not just a quote unquote normal person, whether they're in the LGBTQ plus community. We noticed that a lot of this generation have grown up with including that community in their life, where in the past, we don't recall that. Maybe before the Americans with Disabilities Act, a lot of classes of people were segregated as well. Just looking at that visual, the generation is just making access. They have access to the internet. There's just so much information at your fingertips, and just kind of feeling that relief. I was just looking at TikTok. They include captioning. They include people, with a variety of voices, variety of backgrounds. It's very, if they have the background too bright, they're very, transparent about, this is something that was outside of my control. Just having that information given to our kids about access, it just feels like this generation, we've seen improvements now. I can't wait to see what's going to happen in the next generation as we move forward to continuously see those improvements grown upon. During COVID, speaking about COVID, it was an ugly virus, but now many people who have a disability can work from home. They can do X, Y, and Z before they weren't allowed to. And now those accommodations were forced. And it feels like the future is really focus on supporting people with disabilities and a variety of needs in a different way.
It's interesting that you remark on COVID. I serve on the State Rehabilitation Council, which kind of oversees voc rehabilitation. And there are certain disabilities that they are serving less people than they have in the past. And we were musing that perhaps that's because a lot of the things you really had to fight for as an accommodation pre-pandemic are now really natural, like the working from home. So it's opened up a lot more accessibility. Reed, you get the last word on this question as we have just a couple minutes left of our time together.
Thank you. When I look into the future, I see a variety. For me, I kind of call it 50-50. I see on the bright side, more acceptance, more inclusion, but on the iffy side, I see us still needing to address. I don't get services, but I know some peers who get PCA services, so we need to address the PCA and long-term care shortage and a variety of other issues without throwing money at the problem. But overall, I have hope.
And I think hope is one of the brightest things our community can have. Again, I want to thank Reed and Laura and Carly and TJ and Tabiso for joining me for this really important conversation. I can't help but wonder what Lois and Elaine would have said all those years ago if we asked them these same questions. And I can't wait to hear what future generations have to say about these same questions as we keep moving forward and building a brighter and more inclusive and accessible community and changing what the conversation about independent living looks like. Thanks so much, everyone.
Wow. I just first and foremost just want to say with sincerity, just thank you. Not for just the vibrant discussion. And as I look at the clock, I'm going to go off script a little bit here. So bear with me, just because I mean, I'm somewhat at a loss for words just how impactful that you all have just have been, right? And not just for, again, the vibrant discussion, but more so the education, right? And being informative, for everyone. I've been in the criminal justice arena centered around reform, and I've thrown these things around. We talk about being inclusive and we talk about equity and those things. And, you get to a point where you think you kind of got it all figured out, right? You're committed to this. And when I jumped into kind of the Olmstead work, for me, it's been impactful for me because I have also realized, right, my own shortcomings. When we talk about being inclusive, right? And we talk about being intentional about making sure that we're having equity across a different range of diversity. And so I just can't thank you all enough. What I can say, and I know I took some notes first and foremost to Jillian, just for moderating, just an amazing job, just the grace and patience and just the facilitation, just amazing. And I just also just want to highlight a couple of things that I just took from each one of you. Reed, I just want to say, appreciate you hanging tough. And then just, closing us out with both, talking about the things you're excited about, but also, and, reminding us, that there's still just a lot of work to be done. TJ, you made the comment, if we don't continue to raise our voice, then others will continue to ignore our needs, right? That just let you know, I felt that. I appreciate your thoughts. Laura, you talked about how, our voices are powerful, right? And you also mentioned, and you talked about, and I appreciate you hanging tough about the fatigue, right? And then Jillian talked about just the, the self-advocacy fatigue. And I just appreciate you illuminating that. And you talked about the stress and things that come with that. And Carly, you talked about your own journey and the intentionality, specifically when we talk about our youth, right? And how do we reflect on that, and how do we be intentional about that? And to be so, I mean, I just have an immense amount of appreciation for your authenticity, the elegance, this universal design that you talked about. Just so you know, I'm going to steal that from you. I will always make sure you get credit for it. But again, just just your delivery, right? And you're just continuing just to be just your authentic self, I think is something to admire. But in its totality, again, if I just want you all to know, just as self-advocates, don't underestimate the impact that you all have had today as a panel. Right. And I can again just speak for myself, just the impact you have had on me today. This has really been the highlight of my day and the highlight of my week, and probably be the highlight of my year. So just an immense amount of gratitude to all of you, and just thank you sincerely. And with that, I'll jump back in for time. So I'll kind of get to kind of some of the housekeeping things, but again, just sincerely appreciate you all. So gosh, this was our second annual Olmstead Day celebration. The Minnesota Olmstead Implementation Office continues this work throughout the year. Please be sure to stay connected through their social media, newsletter, and website. On behalf of the OIO office, the Olmstead Subcabinet and Leadership Forum, thank you to all the presenters today for your advocacy and sharing your stories and experiences with us. I also, again, I know there'll be some people I missed, but I also want to thank, the interpreters today, just true professionals. Just really appreciate the job that was done today. I would be remiss not to mention my co-chair of the Leadership Forum, Lisa Harrison Hadler. I saw Diane on the call today, just the OIO, just team, Chloe, Maddie, Rylan, Caitlin, just really appreciate just all the work you all have done behind the scenes. Again, I don't think you'll ever get the credit that you deserve, but I just want you to know just an immense amount of appreciation for just all the work that you all have done. This couldn't have happened today without you all being steadfast and committed to this work. And then some of my other colleagues who I just saw, on the call, to to Bud and Colleen, and others out there, again, who have been a part of the sub cabinet or part of the leadership forum, to the governor and his words today. Again, I just can't thank you all enough for your contributions to today. We hope today was a powerful experience that truly captured disability pride, right? And thank you to everyone who joined us today to celebrate independent living and disability in Minnesota. And with that, so thank you again for joining us in celebrating disability today and every day. Happy Olmstead Day, everyone. Have a blessed rest of your week. Stay healthy, stay safe out there. And for all of you who will be hitting the numerous Taylor Swift events over the course of, it feels like, the next month, please smile and have a good time for me as well. So thank you all. Have a blessed day.